Welcome into MJT Football. We appreciate you stopping by here. We don't know how you got here, but we appreciate you taking a little bit of time. Please consider liking, subscribing, sticking around, joining the conversation. We are talking fantasy football wide receivers. We're going to give our list of our top 12. We're going to give some late round league winners that we'll be targeting. Only one of us is a fantasy expert on this show. That will be the man flexing at the bottom of your screen. He's got a belt. Me and Mike don't have belts. Look at this. This man is a certified fantasy expert right there. Oh shit. So I'm the only one without a trophy? Goodness gracious. I'm a regular season stud in fantasy football.
Don't worry, Tony.
Team flop.
Don't worry, that trophy, that belt's overrated. It's all about coming in second place. It's harder to come in second place than it is to win. I'm just saying.
Mike is still harboring feelings about a show we did last Friday on the show. Go back and watch that, where we discussed a hot topic about CJ Stroud.
Yeah, go back and watch it because Mike,
he was on fire, ladies and gentlemen. He went to bat for all the greats, and you gotta love it. Everybody's good. Excited about fantasy football season. Have you guys done any mock drafts yet?
Nope.
I don't need to do mock drafts, Tony. I got one thing that helps me with fantasy football. I'll tell you that right now. This
The crystal ball.
I look in here, gives me all the answers to everything I need to know.
Who's
Joe?
You know what I need to know from the crystal ball? Who's starting for the Raiders? Is it Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew? Because that affects my wide receiver rankings heavily.
Same.
As a Charger fan, you don't want to know because it shows me what happened in week 1. You don't want to know.
Get out of here.
What, Mike? What?
I was just thinking of week 1 a few years ago. You know, we were there together, remember?
We're going to be there again this year. Come on, let's go.
We will be. Week 1 at SoFi. I cannot wait. We did running back rankings a couple weeks ago. That's also on the channel. Go back and check that out. And again, we appreciate disagreements. If you guys disagree with any of the rankings, or you want more, in depth on why we picked certain players, where we picked them, reach out to these two on social media. NFL Mike on TikTok and all the other places, at the Joe Morley on TikTok and all of the other places. I don't know why I'm hyping up TikTok when the place is going to shut down in a couple of weeks and crumble Mike's existence. He's not having it. He is not having it.
We're taking this thing all the way to the Supreme Court, Tony.
Hey. Oh, now that you bring that up, sorry, go off topic. They said Frank McCourt wants to buy TikTok. If you guys know that name, you know it's going to be garbage after he takes over.
Well, he's done wonderful things with the Dodgers parking lot. The smartest thing that guy ever did. Sell the Dodgers and keep the parking lot. Jack those prices up. Goodness gracious. Way to go, Mr. McCourt. All right, so we're going to do it a little bit differently. Normally, I like to start from, I said we're doing top 12, so I like to start from the end and work way to the top. I don't think there's a ton of mystery in the first 6 wide receivers. So we're going to go top 1 through 6, and then we'll go 7 through 12. I'll start by giving mine. The number 1 wide receiver in fantasy football, the guy that I'll be drafting, and it is slightly contingent on whether or not this man shows up for practice. But that is CeeDee Lamb. So CeeDee Lamb at 1, Jamar Chase at 2, Tyreek Hill at 3, Justin Jefferson at 4, Garrett Wilson 5, and Amon-Ra St. Brown at 6. So this is my top 6. The one that I think is maybe not the norm, but I also don't know where other people who are as obsessed with fantasy like we are, where they have Garrett Wilson. But last year I drafted Garrett Wilson at the turn in a 12-team fantasy league. I drafted 12 and 13. Was it 10 or 12? It was the Vegas league. Whatever it was. At the turn, I drafted CeeDee Lamb and Garrett Wilson. And Garrett Wilson suffered a massive blow to that 4 plays into the game. It was brutal. But based on my top 6, you know what? let's just go to the next person's top 6. Let's do it like that, and then we'll discuss where we're at. So, Mike, who's your top 6?
Yeah, it's pretty similar. I've got CD at 1. I think he led the NFL in fantasy, or led receivers in fantasy points scored last year and targets. So I don't think that's going to change. Hopefully he gets a deal. Hopefully he gets to practice. I've got Justin Jefferson at 2. QB situation does worry me a tiny bit, but this massive payday only puts more pressure on getting Justin Jefferson the ball as much as humanly possible. Another guy that I like because of this payday is, the teams are going to be loading up on stopping Justin Jefferson. Jordan Addison on the other side, but he's not in the top 12. Amon-Ra St. Brown at 3, top 5 in targets, top 5 in fantasy points last year. Probably when you talk about all the situations of these, top 5 wide receivers or so, maybe your safest pick. Tyreek Hill at 4, still unstoppable. There's a little bit of risk now as the older he gets, but still unstoppable. AJ Brown at 5. I'm kind of just admitting that I was wrong last year about the Devonta Smith AJ Brown thing. And then Jamar Chase is my number 6. I think that Jamar has been one of the most consistent fantasy producers, game in, game out. The only issue is he hasn't been on the field for every game. So when he's out there, he's proven, I think it's like 85. It's like some crazy number of weeks that he's been healthy. He's finished in the top 10 wide receivers that week.
Jamar Chase, right?
Yeah, some crazy percentage. It's like 85% or something.
Yeah. Joe?
So last year I pounded the table and I told you guys CeeDee Lamb would be the number 1 fantasy football wide receiver last year. Maybe I was ahead of my time because you guys are all on CeeDee Lamb this year. I'm pivoting away from him because like we talked about last week, I'm kind of hoping that the Dallas Cowboys have a little dumpster fire this year. Not that CeeDee Lamb won't get the numbers. I mean, if he shows up and he gets the numbers, but what if they don't extend him, right? We're sitting here. We don't know if he's going to get that extension or not. And you know how some people do in contract years. Hey, that little injury kind of hurts a little bit more, coach. Can't play this week. So I kind of am going to stay away from him. If I get a chance, trust me, I'll draft him if I'm sitting there. But if I'm looking at a number 1 wide receiver, and I think I'm taking St. Brown. I think that's the guy that I'm taking. We saw what the Detroit Lions offense can do, and they've been a top offense for 2 years. It wasn't just a fluke last year. They've done it a couple years in a row. So I think I am looking at St. Brown as my number 1 wide receiver if I'm in the first round and I need a wide receiver. Number 2, I would have to go Jamar Chase. I think I still go Jamar Chase because of that connection with Joe Burrow. Then I know I'm dropping Justin Jefferson, but I'm only doing it because of his quarterback situation, right? I probably still take Justin Jefferson at number 3. Tyreek Hill's number 4. Then I would put CeeDee Lamb at number 5 just because of the uncertainty and everything there. But like I said, I like CeeDee Lamb. I'm just worried that I have little things bother me in fantasy football. And you're always in fantasy football, you're supposed to think of the whole season, right? Like you're supposed to be like, okay, yeah, he has the great talent, but will his whole team keep up? So that's why I drop him there. And at number 6, that's where I'm having a hard time because I do like AJ Brown. I think last year my team, one of my teams had AJ Brown and Tyreek Hill, so I think I did great on there. But I'm kind of iffy right here of what I want to do because I do want to put Garrett Wilson a little higher, like Tony said, just because of the Aaron Rodgers effect, where he's gonna. Who else is he going to throw to on that team? Like he's going to go to him. He's going to build him up. And Garrett Wilson is a good enough wide receiver where even if Aaron Rodgers goes down, he's going to have the targets and any of the playmaking ability to do something.
Your guys' Jets rhetoric is it's so all over the place. It's like this team's going to suck. They got the most overrated quarterback in the league, but their receiver is going to finish top 5. This team's going to suck.
How did you do last year? How did you do last year?
This team is terrible. This team is garbage. They're overrated. They're all going to get injured, but they're going to win the division. This is your guys' Jets takes here.
I never said the Jets are going to win the division.
Last year, I think you had them winning 10 games, Joe, after you talk shit about them for an entire 3-month period.
I had them 10 games in 3rd place in their division.
That's still good. That's still good, but you talk about them like they're bad. That's my whole point.
I had them at 11 wins and winning the division last year. So the reason I have Garrett Wilson there is like you can still be a 9 or 10 win team, and you can still have a quarterback that doesn't necessarily light the world on fire in the fantasy realm. It's more about his constant opportunities to get the football. And for me, it's more about Garrett Wilson's ability to get open and Aaron Rodgers' ability to recognize that and take advantage of that every time. And so as to where I think some people will look at it and they go, well, they added Mike Williams. I'm not necessarily sure that Mike Williams can be a main target for the way that Aaron Rodgers likes to play football. Will Aaron Rodgers be able to maximize him? And can Mike Williams have 1,000 to 1,200 yards if healthy? Yes, he can. But I just think that Garrett Wilson has that opportunity to be, 110 catches and 1,500 yards with 8 to 10 touchdowns. Like he can have that kind of a season with Rodgers. So I had to put him up there. The player that I left out that was on your guys' top 6 was AJ Brown. And my thing with AJ Brown is like new offense again, Devonta Smith and Dallas Goedert, but then the addition of Saquon Barkley as to where not necessarily that Kellen Moore offenses are known for running the football a ton, which we were really hoping that would have been the case last year for the Chargers. It's more that like, how many different times are they going to be using Saquon as another target, in the passing game, whether it's the screen game, whether it's splitting him out to the slot, running that little Pac-Man route or the option routes that he gets there. So like, I think that all of these things maybe eat into a little bit of the volume. I still think that everything will be there, but like, I think the offense has an opportunity to maybe be a little bit more spread out. AJ Brown is not far down my list. That was the only difference there. You guys don't worry about that at all. Like you still just think AJ Brown is.
Well, it's a lot of what I was thinking last year, Tony, when they brought in Swift. I was like, okay, maybe they're going to run the ball. Maybe they're going to get to him in the screen game a little bit more. And, I obviously am a big Devonta Smith fan. And each year he just kind of gets a little bit more out of the workload, just chunks a little bit more out of it. So it's very close. And I'm with you. I just think that AJ Brown proved me wrong in such a way last year that I can't doubt him as much this year. But I see what you're saying. My biggest thing with Saquon Barkley and what I was telling the 302 Birds guys a few weeks ago when I was on their show is that I think that he is going to take a lot of these plays that maybe Swift just goes down and house call them. He's going to take a lot of these plays and a lot of this yardage away from AJ Brown down the field in the big plays when he house calls, 5 or 7 more touchdowns than DeAndre Swift was able to last year. All of this is warranted that everyone stays healthy as well. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see the Kellen Moore, like, are we going to see something more like we saw in Dallas where it was a little bit closer to balance? Or are we going to see a lot more passing out of Jalen Hurts, which wouldn't make very much sense? That's going to determine a lot here for the Eagles offense. But what do you think, Joe?
I think the Barkley thing could go the other way. Like you guys were talking about, like Barkley taken away. It could also help AJ Brown get more than what he did the last couple of years. And I know it's like, what? No. But when you get down to the red zone now, are you going to put another guy? You're going to put another guy in the box because of Barkley, because you're scared of him now, which is going to put AJ Brown on a weaker opponent or one-on-one, and then why not just throw that ball up there, right? So I guess when I'm looking at wide receiver rankings, it's not just the yardage. I'm looking at touchdowns. Touchdowns. If I can get six points, every week, I'm taking that. So I think AJ Brown's bigger red zone target now than he has been in the past with the addition to Saquon Barkley.
I tend to think that great running games make the middle of the field more opportunistic, right? Where it's like, if you really are committed to having that guy, you're going to get more seam routes. You might get more sort of single high safeties where you can, you're play actioning, you have Dallas Goedert faking a block and then just slipping up the seam. Like, I think there's more opportunities for it to be equal opportunity. Picking AJ Brown in the first round, I don't think is going to ruin your fantasy season. And that's why I wanted to start with I think there's probably 8 wide receivers that I would say all of these guys are worthy of being picked in the first round of fantasy. and you're probably going to have a very reliable first round pick. And like Mike said, all of this stuff is contingent on health. It always is. Like I don't think we need to bake that into the conversation anymore. Before we leave this, the only other thing is, and you can see him up here, Mike put Tua in here, throwing up the piece, is I am a little curious as to like, is Tyreek Hill the same focal point of the offense that he has been, or do we start to see him starting to work in more of the new pieces? Not necessarily that they're trying to transition away from him, but that you are game planning and gaining experience. Dolphins have to win games. Mike McDaniel wants to win games. That's the bottom line. So it's not like he's going to completely go out. But if he's trying to figure out different ways to get some of the new players that are involved that might be emerging in practice and stuff like that, I wonder if at a certain point, Tyreek Hill starts to become like equal points playmaker and decoy. You know, like they did some of this stuff with Randy Moss. Randy Moss still had tremendous years, but it was a great way to be able to game plan open other players around him.
Yeah, I mean, I dropped him down a few spots from last year. I think he finished second overall. I just have noticed watching Tyreek Hill, Tony, over the last, I think, 2 seasons since he's been in Miami, he's starting to get a lot more like bumps and bruises. Now, give him some credit. He's a veteran player that has nothing else to prove in his career other than go and win more Super Bowls pretty much. He plays through these injuries. He's been playing through these injuries, but it almost seems like, once a month I'm seeing ankle.
No. Once a game, we see him like limp off and we're like, oh
something.
My. We're sitting there like, what's happening? You're like, because it happened to me last year where he limped off the field and I had like a 6-point lead in fantasy. And I was like, oh shit. I was like, I might actually win this. Like I don't root for injury, but I'm like, I might actually win this. 2 plays later, he came back on the field and like smoked the guy for like a 60 round. I was like, all right, we can change the channel. It was just over. It was that fast. And he does that shit, it seems like every single week.
And how long? I mean, he's one of the greats, so maybe he can keep doing it. But how long can he do it? He actually, I know we're going to talk about this topic later in the show, is someone that his value as far as trading in dynasty leagues, and it's about that time to just go ahead and pull the trigger on that and make that happen, because Jalen Waddle has a similar skill set and is going to fit into this offense so well over the next couple of years. I think you're going to start to see Tyreek come off the gas pedal a little bit to preserve his health, preserve his longevity. And who knows what's going to happen, especially when you have to pay these guys all this money. If anything, he might even end up, God forbid, sent back to Kansas City. Let's just hope that doesn't happen.
No.
I think that because of those reasons, because Mike McDaniel's bread and butter and his roots are more to go like, we're going to have a dominant zone run game and play off the play action. And now he's finally putting together an offensive line and a running back core that can start to get into that a little bit more. And also good defense, a better defense, hopefully, from Miami this year. It's not going to be all these 36-35 shootouts. They're not going to score 70 points in a game this year to boost up these stats. So that's why I will take the younger horses if I'm in the first round. I'll take Amon-Ra. I'll take Justin Jefferson. I'll take CeeDee Lamb. If Tyreek Hill gets to a certain level, you got to pull the trigger. But there's some tough decisions in that first round, around 5, where there's a couple guys I'd rather have than Hill right now.
Yeah, see, I like playing the game. I like fantasy football. I love fantasy football, where I like playing the game, where I'm taking the risk on the guys that you're talking about, the AJ Browns and the Tyreek Hills. Little older, offense might not be where it was last year. But I'm taking my risk on those guys, because week 1, week 2, when they go out and dominate, who's getting the better package back when I make a trade? Because if you ain't trading in fantasy football, you ain't playing. So I'm taking Tyreek Hill, waiting for him to go off for 2-3 games. Then you start seeing the pattern where Jalen Waddle is taking over that offense, or whatever is going on. OBJ maybe having a good season, whatever is going on down there. And you throw Tyreek Hill on the trade block. Guess who's getting good players back? You're going to win all the way around with that number 1 pick.
In the Vegas League last year, Tyreek Hill went first overall. CMC went second overall. CMC's team won the championship. So,
yeah, it's I mean, the thing with any of these guys at the top is that they're going to be high volume players, and there is just statistically more of an opportunity for them to get injured. Just the amount of times that they're going to be involved in situations to end up in massive car wrecks every week, and it's even more so with the running backs. That's why we're seeing a lot more with the increased volume in the passing game, and then also just the attrition of the running backs seemingly going, more and more and more, and backfields by committee. I think it is the smart thing to do at like a certain point is pull the triggers on wide receivers early in the draft, and especially if you can get one of these guys. Although I don't know. I'm probably going to change that position. I'm saying that now in June. By August, you guys are gonna see my first round is gonna be like RB heavy, because there's like 6 or 7 guys that I'm like, I gotta have Bijan on one team this year, and I gotta have Saquon in the Eagles uniform on one team, and all that.
I honestly don't even like drafting high anymore, because I'm like you, Tony. I fall in love with 6 guys in the first round. I'm just like, I'll let the fantasy football gods take this one out of my hands. Put me at 10. Don't start this. It's not the time for this. It's not the time, not the place. All right. Don't replay what I just said. I'll take somebody at 10, whatever's left for me, so I can get that early second round pick and get a second guy. Because I can't make these choices. I can't make these top 5 choices.
Joe, keep it together. Keep it together, Joe. Keep it together.
All right. Mute his mic. Mute his mic. Producer, mute his mic.
I'm just saying, if you're gonna say something like that, you say no Diddy, and then you say it.
I don't even know what I said, first of all. So can you say what I said again?
No, he can't. And let's
I didn't even realize what I said. What did I say, Joe?
Number 7.
Don't do that, because you cut it up and you'll make me say it. But
are we ready to move on?
Yeah, but like you guys said, I'm with you, Mike. I prefer drafting at the end of the first round, because you make everybody else make those harder decisions. So when these wide receivers are falling to you, you're like, okay, cool. I had AJ Brown there, he's gone. I have Tyreek Hill. It makes it a lot easier for you. And then more than likely, you're the one who looks smarter, because one of those end up in an injury or something like that. Because if you took Jamar Chase, you would have took Jamar Chase over a lot of people last year, but you let him fall, and then at the end of you took somebody else at the end of the first round who looks better. I mean, like Tony, it goes down to injuries. Injuries suck in fantasy football, but it happens.
So last year if I would have, my draft strategy was the way the board was working out. Kelsey was gone. There was the 4 running backs were gone. And I sat there and I go, I'm taking CD, Garrett Wilson, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'm taking 2 of these 3 players. All 3 of them ended up being on the board. I didn't think maybe CD might not be there for me at the 12 spot. Now he's there. I take Garrett Wilson over Amon-Ra St. Brown. Garrett Wilson actually stays healthy, but when Aaron Rodgers doesn't stay healthy, I'm now locked into a dependent position with that player. And so it's like, yes, me having Garrett Wilson this high is contingent on the fact that they're going to keep Aaron Rodgers upright. And I think that of my top 6, he's the one that I have the most concern about, but he's also that one guy that I see that can vault into that conversation with Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson and everything else. And I'm willing to gamble on that if he's healthy. I think he can be in that territory of wide receiver. So I'm gonna bet on it.
Cover your ears, kids. Tony, you should have said fuck Aaron Rodgers and fuck Garrett Wilson and just taking him on raw.
I wish I like, and that's the thing.
A lion versus Aaron Rodgers is come on, Tony. This is an easy choice for you.
I have a Amon-Ra at 6. And unless I end up in a situation where I'm at, get that sort of 10 to 12 pick, I'm probably not going to end up with him on my team. And the first year we ever did fantasy football discussions, we had Marcus Grant on our old Warzone channel. And I said, my sleeper this year is Amon-Ra St. Brown. And he was like, he's a big USC guy. And I was like, I drafted him. I kept him on my team until about week 6. Well, about week 8 or 9 of his rookie season, the dude just took off and had a great back end, and he was already off 2 of my rosters, and it was just a freaking nightmare. That was something that I had to deal with. It's like I've not had him on my team since then because he's always getting picked just a little bit before I have him valued. So maybe this is the year where I just I dive, I'm all in on it.
You win the championship last year, Tony, if you took a Monroe over Wilson there, I think.
Probably would have been pretty close. Although I took Herbert at quarterback and I had to solve that situation. That was
Joe's guy last year. That's Joe's fault. Joe had that guy ranked so high.
Who, Herbert?
Yeah.
Joe jinxed us. Let's go to number 7. My number 7 wide receiver is from the Las Vegas Raiders. It's Davante Adams. This, like I said to open the show, is contingent on Gardner Minshew being the quarterback. I am much more comfortable with Minshew getting the football to Davante Adams than I am with Aiden O'Connell getting him the football. Number 8 for me, Marvin Harrison Jr. Now, I think this is a little bit higher than a lot of people are going to have him, but I think Kyler Murray is a very good quarterback, and we've seen Kyler Murray have great success. Marvin Harrison Jr., I think, is going to come into the league right away and be 1,300 yards and 8 to 10 touchdowns. Automatically, Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to come and be a stud. A.J. Brown for me at 9. Drake London at number 10. I'm not sure where people are landing on Drake London right now, but I'm a big fan. I think Kirk Cousins has the ability to make sure that he gets the ball to his playmakers. He's very, very smart about getting to the line of scrimmage, knowing what he needs to do, getting the ball into the hands of the playmakers, not going to fool around. Chris Olave at number 11, and then Puka Nacua at number 12. Before I won't get into any of mine, I kind of already elaborated on a couple of things. Let's go, Mike. You're 7 through 12.
It's kind of similar. I have Garrett Wilson at 7. I had A.J. Brown in my top 6 over him. Same reasons all you guys are saying. I have faith that Aaron Rodgers is going to do with 17 what he does with 17s. There's no reason to think that it's going to be much different. Similar level of wide receivers, similar points in their careers.
What's his number, I thought?
Oh, he is 5. You're right. Good call, Tony. Yeah. I messed that up. But you guys get the point. You get the point what he did with Davante Adams. The guy, Aaron Rodgers, just knows how to get star route runners like this in one-on-one coverage. Just feast on it. So I have him at 7. At 8, I have Davante Adams. Same thing, Tony. If it's Minshew, he's at 8. If it's AOC, he's probably out of the top 12 for me. Davante Adams finished last year 2nd in targets in the NFL still. I know he had some games where he had 1 catch for 15 yards, but he still is getting the target share. I think that Jacoby Myers only relieves him a little bit more. I think the workload that Josh Jacobs carries gives a little bit more Davante Adams' way. Maybe in some of these situations where it's 3rd and 3 and they would go to Jacobs, maybe they're going to try and run a slant with Davante Adams instead. I think that the ability is still there for Adams as well. At 9, I actually have Puka Nacua, but it's tough because I have faith in Cooper Kupp, and where he's slid now in fantasy football, that's a fun pick. I mean, you get him at the end of the second round. That's a lot of fun to see what happens there, and he could easily just plug right back in there and run it back up again like he did in previous years because his game it doesn't necessarily rely on crazy explosion. Very strategic wide receiver. At number, what was I, 10? That was 9, or was that 8?
You did number 9, Puka Nacua.
7, Garrett Wilson. 8, Davante Adams. 9, Puka Nacua. And at 10, I have Mike Evans. He's finishing in the top 10 3 of the past 4 seasons. The only season that he didn't was a season that was kind of injury prone, dealing with some QB issues. I think Mike Evans is probably going to be right here at the edge of the top 10 again. And that's a pretty safe bet. At 11, I have DJ Moore. And at 12, I have Marvin Harrison Jr., Tony. So MHJ, rookie, makes both of our top 12s here. I'm thinking similarly to you. I think Kyler Murray is going to have a great combination with MHJ. We've seen some of the stuff he's put up with DeAndre Hopkins as his wide receiver 1 when he's healthy. It comes down to, can the Cardinals keep Kyler upright for 1, and for 2, just stay competitive? No. I always worry about teams that I feel like are going to fall out of it really early. Not that I think that players are going to sit or take any plays off or any rests, but the team strategically might go, all right, it's week 12. You got a rolled ankle. We're down by 5 games already. Maybe don't do it. Well, week 12 is the path to the fantasy playoffs. So get your ass out there and play. So that's the stuff that I worry about. But yeah, that's my final part of my top 12. So Wilson, Adams, Nakua, Evans, Moore, MHJ.
I was hoping you weren't going to say Mike Evans because I was going to rip both of you guys right now.
I didn't even put Mike Evans in my top 15.
Yeah, we've been trying to write Mike Evans off for a couple of years now. I remember when Tony and I were first started talking about fantasy football, I said Mike Evans. He's like, he's done. And I drafted Mike Evans one more year. And then it's like, okay, am I going to be stuck with Mike Evans one more year? Okay, dang, he still did good again. So I'm not going to write Mike Evans off ever again because he continues to put it up. And his relationship with Baker Mayfield has looked great last year and hopefully this year too. But number 7, I have Devontae Adams right there. And I don't know what you guys are sleeping on. You guys, well, last year he was still number 2 in all this. But if AOC's his quarterback, I'm not taking. Who was his quarterback last year for 10 games? Right? Come on. It's going to be the same shit.
No. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'm going to interrupt you. I said he came second in targets. He finished like 16th amongst receivers with the second highest target share. That's not a good thing.
It wasn't.
But most of that came before AOC took over. But anyways, number 7, I had Devontae Adams. Number 8, I don't know why I put him up there, and I still don't. I don't want to trust it, but I'm going to. I'm going to put Drake London there. It's just the Kirk Cousins effect. Number 9, I have Mike Evans. Number 10, I have Jalen Waddle. Number 11, I have Puka Nacua, and number 12, I have Nico Collins.
Ooh, okay, a little spice there. I didn't put Nico Collins, because I went through 15. I know I only said 12, but I always like to kind of see if the guys that I have in those extra spots make it on your list anywhere else. I think the Nico Collins one is interesting from you, Joe, and you guys both put Mike Evans in there, right? Where it's like, this is one of those situations where we are getting a completely new offensive coordinator. They still have Chris Godwin. We saw Palmer, was there for deep targets. The kid from Nebraska, I believe. Like he was outstanding, making plays for them. And then I think they drafted another wide receiver this year. So it's like, the only thing is like, how long can this train continue to run? And it's not that I have been against betting on Mike Evans. It's just that I don't like where Mike Evans ends up in all these drafts in that sort of 4th to 6th round range, because I still think you're getting starting running backs in those spots, or you're getting wide receivers that have higher upside, like where he's. So I just like, yes, you get that floor where it's like you're getting 1,000 yards and 80 plus catches and this many touchdowns. And it's like, why don't you just take it? And it's like, because I would rather chase ceiling when I'm drafting in the area where Mike Evans is at.
See, I really wanted to put Brandon Ayuk in my top 12. And I'm going there, and I just can't right now. At this moment, maybe when we get towards August, when we actually start doing real drafts, he'll be in there. But at this moment, I can't put a Brandon Ayuk in my top 12.
I think Brandon Ayuk is a much better football player than he is fantasy asset in this 49ers offense. Everything's going to run through CMC and then Debo second. And then there is going to be game plans where Brandon Ayuk is the guy, because they know we can target this DB and we can get the ball to him. But I think Brandon Ayuk is a tremendous receiver. And if you told me like, hey, you got to pick one guy for the next 5 years, Brandon Ayuk would probably be in my top 3 just because of everything that he does involved in the blocking game, his physicality, his route running. But just for fantasy football purposes, I can't pick the third option in an offensive scheme. I can't pick him in the top first 4 or 5 rounds.
But if Ayuk is on the Pittsburgh Steelers, where are you putting him?
But again, now you're telling me that Russ is got to work with him. Like, I don't love that situation that much more.
You know damn well Russell Wilson is not going to be the starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I think he will be.
I absolutely think he's going to be the starter for the Steelers.
I think the only way Russ is going to be out of there is if he gets hurt, and then Fields gets in there, and the whole offense has to be changed for Fields versus Russ. That's the part that is confusing about this move, is that they're completely different styles. You're not putting Fields under center like you do Russ all the time.
But if Russ is not the starter, they have to cut him. You cannot go into the season where it's like, oh, we have Russell Wilson as our backup. Like, I think it is much easier to go into a season with Justin Fields as your backup. And then if Russ plays bad, team's underperforming, you need a spark, then you go to Justin Fields.
Yeah.
You cannot, I just don't believe you can start the season with Russell as a backup quarterback. And that's why
Yeah, in the same breath, if you talk about what's Russell Wilson's strengths, the down the field passing. This is why Jerry Jeudy could never break out with the Broncos, because he's kind of underneath, middle of the field worker, but Russ just kept throwing that shit up to Cortland Sutton and Marvin Mims down the sidelines. And that works out well for George Pickens and potentially Brandon Ayuk addition here. But I'm interested also in talking about the Nico Collins talk. Obviously, he finished really high last year. I think he finished 12th. But I think Tank Dell and Diggs are guys that are going to finish with more fantasy points than him this year. So I don't think that Nico is going to be in the top 12, especially not the top 12. I think that Diggs and Tank Dell will finish higher than Nico Collins.
What do you want to bet on that, Mike?
We can bet one of our dynasty players.
Sure. I get Justin Herbert when I win the bet.
Okay.
Hang on. You
not dynasty, not a key franchise player. Let's just go for your franchise quarterback.
No, we could bet one of our dynasty players. Then he names somebody, and you're like, "Oh, wait, hold on, wait a minute."
Mike,
take Joe off the freaking screen. Take Joe off the screen.
If you win, I will trade you. Okay, hear me out. I will trade you CeeDee Lamb and who's a running back on my team that you might like, Devon Achane, or I know you're not a big Najee Harris fan. I will give you CeeDee Lamb and a running back, and you will give me Justin Herbert when I win the bet.
But what's the bet? Let's put the bet down.
The bet is you're telling me that Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell individually are both going to outscore Nico Collins.
I mean, that's a pretty hot take. Can we meet in the middle on this bet and just say that Nico Collins
walk backwards right now? Come on.
Nico Collins does not lead the wide receivers in fantasy points scored this year.
Well, I mean, you got Stephon Diggs. That's not like, yes, that's the case. I believe that Nico Collins is going to be the number one wide receiver, and those other two guys are going to be complementary. Like Nico Collins might not lead the team in catches. He will lead the team in fantasy points, in touchdowns and total yards. Like, I don't think you sign Nico Collins to the contract they signed him to, and he's not the focal point of Bobby Slowick's passing attack.
I see what you're saying. I just think the other guys are really, really good. I think that they're better than Collins as route runners and as playmakers for CJ Stroud. And it's just, I'm not going to go in on the Tank Dell and bet Justin Herbert on Tank Dell, but I would on Diggs. If you'll do the Diggs versus Collins bet, I will take that, because I know that I got that guy, that guy that I traded for last year that everyone laughed at me for.
I'm even offering you a fair trade. Like, I'm offering you CeeDee Lamb and something else for it's not like I'm saying if I win the bet, you get nothing. You'd be getting CeeDee Lamb for Justin Herbert. Like, that's not some terrible trade.
It's true.
Like, you should probably consider that trade just outright without a bet.
Yeah, actually, you want to do that? You want to do that deal? Send me CeeDee Lamb and one for Herbie.
I will send you Anthony Richardson and CeeDee Lamb for Justin Herbert.
Deal. Let's do it.
Done. I just acquired Justin Herbert. I can't be.
Does that mean the Dynasty League is going to be open today, so I can start making trades too?
No, I'm way too lazy to open it in June. Sorry.
It should be open year round. Dynasty's open year round.
Well, it is open for verbal agreements like the one we just had on the air.
Yeah, people are going to see this, and I'm going to get fucking cooked. Like, when you isolate this on the internet, somebody's going to go, wait, this guy just traded away the number one receiver for fantasy football last year and a top 5 potential QB for a guy who inherited a coach where they want to run the football. I'm aware of what I just did, everybody.
What? To the team that has Christian McCaffrey, Jahmyr Gibbs, and A.J. Brown already.
To be fair, Tony would have won a championship a couple years ago if he didn't trade Justin Fields, Tom Brady his last year.
My dynasty team is absolutely loaded. I've just not been able to get consistent quarterback play. Once I get consistent quarterback play, I'm going to go on a dynasty run. That's what's going to happen.
It's over. It's already settled, Tony. Congrats.
I know. And that's that's the player that I have been waiting to put my dynasty team over the top.
All I know is whoever has the first overall pick, they're going to send it to me for nothing. First overall pick on the clock.
Is that we were talking about wide receivers, and you just made a trade for a wide receiver. You just said basically, fuck quarterback.
Number one wide receiver of all our rankings, by the way.
Yeah. So, well, not my rankings, but yeah.
Rankings last year, Joe. There you go.
I still have a very good wide receiver core. I still have T. Higgins. I still have George Pickens. Couple Chris Godwin. I still got a bunch. I got a good wide receiver core.
I don't even know who's on my team.
So there was yes. I'm getting sidetracked. I got off the topic. So I think one of the other guys that was in here was Joe also had Jalen Waddle. I have Jalen Waddle at 15. I think somebody else all had DJ Moore in their list somewhere. I have DJ Moore at 13. It was a real struggle between him and Puka Nacua. I think that DJ Moore has a great chance to have some of the most spectacular big plays this year because of the way that Caleb can extend plays, sort of like Mahomes, and the speed and ability of somebody like DJ Moore. And then also, if you have somebody who can really command the middle of the field, like Keenan Allen, as long as he's out there and he's healthy, you have the ability to use DJ Moore on a couple other things where built into the play, you have a safety valve for 7 to 10 yards in Keenan Allen. So I think DJ Moore is really in the best position he's ever been in football. And I've been a big fan. Like, I remember I took DJ Moore when Sam Darnold was his quarterback to start the season. I took DJ Moore in like the beginning of the third round, and it kind of worked out. Like, he still had 1,000 yards or 900 yards and a bunch of touchdowns. But I think we covered it. Michael Pittman Jr., some people might be, in that neighborhood there. Let's go to late round receivers that could be league winners. Give one, give two. We'll start with Joe on this one.
Late round wide receivers that I was thinking about is, I don't know, because it's kind of like it's not my sleeper, but it's somebody that I want to get. Is Jaden Reed from Green Bay Packers. I go back and forth on him and Christian Watkins or Watson. Watkins, right?
Watson.
Right. I go back and forth on those two because I want to take a Green Bay receiver right now. Remember last year I was telling you I want to take a Green Bay receiver. I don't know which one I want. And then all of them were like hurt and all that stuff. But I think Reed has the better potential out of all of them when I'm watching. So that's one guy that I will be targeting. The other one is Seattle wide receiver JSN. I don't think he was used 100% correctly last year, and they never got it going on using that 3 wide receiver set that they have up there. But I think the new offense will get it going. So I like JSN this year. I don't know who else, Tony. Maybe the guy I also built up. Maybe I was a year ahead of my time because I also built up Josh Downs, and I like Josh Downs again this year. So I do like Josh Downs with Michael Pittman on the other side. So these are like you're saying, late round picks that I'm looking at taking.
Yeah.
These aren't like top 4 rounds. These are like later rounds where they could catch fire and do something towards the end of the season.
I think these are all good selections. There's no right answer and no need to take up all the receivers so that Mike doesn't have anybody left to name. But I think Dontavian Wicks from the Packers. Like, there's 3 different wide receivers that all could go there. Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with most of those. Don't really disagree with any of them, but I think mine is, and I was shocked when I saw this guy at wide receiver 42. Just pretty crazy. And it's not just him, it's the entire receiving core. And I hate to say it. We talk about league winners at wide receiver 40 plus. Hollywood Brown should not be ranked outside the top 40. There's no world that I think he finishes outside the top 20 other than pulling a hammy again. And then along with him, that entire receiving core. Xavier Worthy, even Rashee Rice, if he misses a few games, is still going to be a guy that could win you a league if you draft him late in your draft. And then I'll throw one more out there because, I'm not biased at all. But Josh Palmer is wide receiver 67 right now. That's almost offensive to the guy who's going to probably lead this team in targets, especially early on in the season. So you might get some cheap plays out of Josh Palmer in week 3, 4, 5. If you need to fill in at flex or wide receiver 2 because of an injury, that's a guy that I would definitely be targeting that can put up wide receiver 1 numbers any given week, it feels like, with Justin Herbert. So Josh Palmer, Hollywood Brown, those are 2 guys I was going to say. Another guy that's falling down the boards, he's not a deep sleeper. I'm not saying he's a late sleeper, but people are completely forgetting about T. Higgins also. And he's going to be on a team, and he's going to be playing. Just which team is it going to be?
Yeah, T. Higgins is in like the 6th, 7th round in some mock drafts, and like that's really, really great value, especially when he was going in the 4th round last year. So obviously Josh Palmer's on my list. There's no way that I could do like this conversation without a shout out to Josh Palmer, just based on the opportunity that he has. What the hell's happening here? Josh Palmer could get 120 targets this year. Why wouldn't you want that from Justin Herbert? That is just a great opportunity. The other late round target that I really love, and this is part of the reason that I did not have Mike Evans up there, is Chris Godwin is going as like wide receiver 38 or 9 or whatever. Liam Cohen has already said like he envisions Godwin in that Cooper Kupp role, like using him as that player where they're running the passing offense through. Now, can Chris Godwin be Cooper Kupp? Probably not. But if you can get that guy in round 9 or 10 for some reason, then you should be drafting him and putting him on your roster. And then the last one is Courtland Sutton. What if Courtland Sutton is in a situation where Bo Nix is just using that first easy read Michael Thomas slant route throw to Courtland Sutton, and Sutton is getting, a bunch of targets, and the deep shots they're taking are to Troy Franklin or Denzel Mims, but the guy that's really getting 9 targets a game is Courtland Sutton from a very accurate quarterback in Bo Nix. I know we laughed about Bo Nix and we think that he got overdrafted or whatever you think. Like, he's a good quarterback and he has a very good offensive coach. So he's in a situation where it's like, this could be a good spot for him. So I like Courtland Sutton, who's him and Josh Palmer are essentially going undrafted. Like, these are guys that you're just going to be able to say in the last round, like, just put these guys on the end of my bench, and they both could be guys that end up with 120 targets this year.
What about Jameson Williams from Detroit, Tony?
Yeah, I think he's another late round player where it's like, why not? If he's wide receiver 5 on your team, or if you go get a QB early and a tight end early and running backs early, it's like, now is Jameson Williams wide receiver 3 on your team? It's worth a shot. If you take, 3 or 4 good shots like that, always one of those guys are going to hit. And I think that he's got a tremendous amount of upside too, where you look at it and it's like, maybe Jared Goff has more trust with him another year in the offense. This is year 3. Ben Johnson keeps coming back, and every year they keep adding more wrinkles. Jared Goff takes another step at showing what he's able to do as a QB. They don't have a lot of outdoor games this year. That's going to help Goff. That's going to help this offense. Like, I think it's yeah. I mean, he needs to live up to that number 12 pick. It's time. Like, it has to happen this year.
Having so many guys like this, it just makes it so hard to abandon the running back strategy still. Like, even though the league is leaning away from the rushing attack, it's like the running backs are getting thinner and the wide receiver group just gets deeper and deeper every year. It's just like, give me CMC at 4th overall. I'll be a very happy camper. Or let these guys, let him fall to 7th, and I'll be a very happy guy. and risk it on CMC being the top fantasy scorer again, and I'll get 5 wide receivers that have potential. You only need to hit 2 of them to win.
Yeah.
Tony, I forgot about that Detroit Lions stat that they're not going to play outside of a dome or outside. So now that I remember it, they're going to play in the regular season. So in your fantasy football season, they're playing outside one time in that whole time.
The Lions?
I think they play.
They don't play outdoors. I think it's back-to-back games, week 16 and 17. And I think week 9 is their first outdoor game.
They might win 16 games. They might win 16 games.
It'll be in Green Bay for that game. It should be relatively good weather, hopefully. Unless you get one of those early Midwestern snowstorms. And people who don't think that it snows in that part of the country in like September and October, it absolutely does. I lived it for the first 18 years of my life. It's miserable. But like I think week 16 or 17, they're in Chicago. So like that's a tough one where you might not trust playing them there. But at that point, you should be able to have a roster built that you're not necessarily beholden to, you have to have this one guy in your lineup to go ahead and finish off the championship. Let's move this conversation over to dynasty targets. As you can see, we've already executed a dynasty trade where I just landed my dynasty quarterback for the next 12 to 15 years. And Mike, once this trade goes through, there is no chance you're ever getting Justin Herbert back in this league ever again. I can guarantee you that.
Don't talk about it.
You're talking to the commissioner, Tony, so I might just kick you out the league and trade with your replacement if I have to. If I have to do what I have to do.
So dynasty rookie targets. Again, I have a bunch written down here, so I will let Mike, you start this one. A dynasty rookie wide receiver that you will be targeting in your draft.
Yeah, I'll take one, so Joe has plenty to talk about. But my dynasty target and the guy that I want to try and get in my dynasty draft, because I feel like he's not going to go first overall in drafts. You're going to be able to manage where you can get him at, is Brian Thomas Jr. of the Jacksonville Jaguars, the wide receiver they just drafted out of LSU. Everyone was talking about Malik Neighbors, and this guy quietly just landed in an amazing spot, a better spot than Malik Neighbors ended up there in New York with Danny Dimes, by going to Jacksonville, joining Trevor Lawrence in a known to be great offense with Doug Peterson. Last year, it was kind of up and down. They've still got Travis Etienne there. Christian Kirk's in the slot, going to take pressure off of him out wide. And I think Brian Thomas Jr., as he grows and develops, is a better option for them at X than Calvin Ridley was. And I remember the takes last year. I was going in on Calvin Ridley being the guy that's going to have to be moved to the slot and take a lot of Christian Kirk's work. It obviously didn't happen. Christian Kirk's a way better receiver than I gave him credit for when I was talking about that. But Brian Thomas Jr., there's no thought of moving him into the slot. So you can just line up with Brian Thomas out wide, Christian Kirk, Etienne in the backfield, and they added Gabe Davis as well, who's someone that on the other side of the field demands at least some kind of coverage. So I think Brian Thomas can have a great rookie year, especially the second half of it. And I think for the career outlook, I'm looking at him as wide receiver 2 as far as the situation he's in right now.
Yeah, I think
maybe Roma Dunze is above him, but he's got to wait his turn to kind of be the wide receiver 1 of that team.
Oh, yeah, Mac Jones is going to love him.
Seen these Mac Jones clips though. On a side note, he looks like he's having such a good time. I'm happy for the guy.
I'm happy for Mac too. Like it can't be a good situation to have to try to replace Tom Brady and then be in a building with Bill Belichick. I agree with you. I think that anytime you can pair somebody who's got that much upside with a quarterback that I think his best football is not even been approached yet. So that's a good spot. Joe, where are you at on these rookie dynasty wide receivers?
Go ahead, Tony. Say yours so I don't take anybody else's.
Oh, I got like 4 of them, but I'm gonna go with Ricky Pearsall. I think that this is one that you got to wait a little bit. This is a player that I really liked in the draft, and I think if you can have somebody that can run routes the way he can and then also catch the ball the way he can, that Kyle Shanahan is going to find a way to have this young man being very successful, faster than I think people realize that he is. So, again, a player that you'll probably be able to get in the second, third round of like rookie dynasty drafts, and you're going to have somebody that might sit on the bench for a year, but at some point it's like now all of a sudden you might have the focal point of Kyle Shanahan's offense in 2026. So Ricky Pearsall is somebody that will definitely be on my dynasty roster.
He might not even sit for a year, Tony. Knock on wood. Brandon Ayuk gets traded. Debo Samuel's health record is not something that you should be betting on 17 games out of him.
Yeah, I think he's just a tremendous football player, and he was somebody that was hoping the Chargers would target him. Ladd McConkey, Jalen Polk were all players that I was really excited for the Chargers to get. They got Ladd McConkey, and I'm excited about that.
Speaking of Ladd, that's probably Joe's pick, huh? Joe, you going with Ladd?
No, I got 3 guys. One of them is our favorite guy, Xavier Legette out of Carolina. I like him. I hope he has a great career. I'm just banking off that just because of him. Another guy I like is Jermaine Burton from Cincinnati, because anytime we can get a wide receiver with a good quarterback, it's good. And the third guy I'll throw out there is Roman Wilson going to Pittsburgh, because of the history that Pittsburgh has of drafting wide receivers. And I like Roman Wilson. I liked his college career. I think he'll be a good pro. So those are 3 guys. Like you said, we're not taking them first round of a rookie draft, but if you're targeting and you got a couple rounds that you're looking at, those are some wide receivers that I would be targeting.
So Jermaine Burton is on my list as well. I didn't bring up Jermaine Burton because I will be drafting Jermaine Burton in the Dynasty League. We're all in. I'm going to draft him. Like, Jermaine Burton is one of those players that if he didn't have, for whatever reason, it seems like even Nick Saban didn't want to say nice things about him. Like, I don't know what it is, but he gives me that like Antonio Brown vibe where he's just going to like go out there at some point. And if all of the coverage is going to be circled around Jamar Chase, Jermaine Burton is going to flourish, like have put up really good numbers for the Cincinnati Bengals. Like, and that's again contingent on Joe Burrow staying on the field. Yeah. So like, I just think Jermaine Burton is going to be, I think he could even be a steal in like this year's redraft leagues. If you just have the kind of roster where you can put him on the bench, if somebody's banged up, like he's just a really good football player. It's just, if the off the field or attitude stuff is there, fantastic.
Well, Jamar Chase goes down for a little bit,
and he becomes the one. Yeah. I argue that someone needs to get in Joe's ear, man, and get him in contact with the best doctors and specialists and supplement guys in the country. And we need to get this guy juiced up. We need to get Joe Burrow on some sauce so he can stay healthy out there and see what he could do.
Or at least start the season off good, right? Like, he always seems to have an injury going into the season. And then he'll pick it up. But yeah, I mean, it's like the first guy I mentioned was Legette, and it's hard to take a Carolina Panther, right? That'd be very hard just because you know the history. But I'm rooting for him. But one guy none of us mentioned, and maybe you guys are waiting to mention, is Coleman from Buffalo. You guys don't like him, or is there a reason that we're not mentioning him?
No, Keon Coleman is second on my list to Ladd McConkey. So I have my list. My order is Ladd, Keon Coleman, Ricky Pearsall, Jermaine Burton. Those are the 4 names that I wrote down for this exercise. Keon Coleman, I think, is another one of those players that just in a redraft league that I'm going to, if he's on the board in round 8, I will be drafting him. He's not, like if he's in that area of like, middle round 7, why wouldn't I want to take a player on a team that has invested in him and then is also missing a lot of targets? Like, a lot of Diggs is gone, Davis is gone, Khalil Shakur isn't necessarily like your dominant wide receiver where he's just going to take over and be a 150 target guy. So, like, it's why when we get to tight end rankings, my Dalton Kincaid ranking is going to be annoying to people on the internet. They're going to be like, why is this guy putting Dalton Kincaid at number 2? What an asshole. Because that's where I think that the offense is going. And I think Keon Coleman can be that player where, like, in redraft leagues this year, you can get a steal in the 7th, 8th round.
Just wait until you see where Joe ranks James Cook, Tony. Get ready for that one.
Yeah. I love James Cook. You ain't gonna lie, but just if you believe
in our rankings last week,
if you believe OTAs and the news that comes out of OTAs, Chase Claypool's the number 1 wide receiver in Buffalo right now.
Right now,
I do think
that's why I love OTA news. That's why OTA news is the best.
I think Chase Claypool just needed to get closer to Canada. That's all it is. Mapletron needed just to be as close as he possibly could be to Canada. He's not homesick, and he's like Chase Claypool is one of those guys where, like, if he went out this year and had 1,300 yards and 8 touchdowns and it was just a monster with Josh Allen, would any of us be shocked? Would any of us be like, oh, we never saw this coming? No, because we've already seen Chase Claypool be really dominant. And it's like, is his head focused and is he preparing to dominate? For whatever reason, things didn't work out in Pittsburgh and he's just kind of like bounced around and not really worked out. But he's going to play with the best quarterback he's ever played with. If he's focused and dedicated, can Chase Claypool be a solid number 1, number 2 wide receiver in the NFL? Sure. Yeah. Like, I won't be shocked if Chase, it's not like it just came out of nowhere. It's not like he's never had success. He's shown he can be a guy.
Yeah, the styles definitely match up. Like Claypool to Gabe Davis and Coleman to Stephon Diggs. They definitely match up when you talk about the styles and how Josh Allen's going to use these guys. We'll see what happens in Buffalo, man. That's another team that's really, really interesting how they start the year. If they start slow, I hope they don't. It's more exciting when the Bills are balling.
I think they discovered recipes for success last year, and it was part of the disagreement with Stephon Diggs. Because we were going to talk about this on last week's show. It ended up getting bumped off the list, but just the way that Stephon Diggs spoke about Josh Allen, like he sounded like he was emotional and like on the verge of like really drudging up something where it's like he's grateful for the time that he had in Buffalo. He just knew that it had run its course and he needed a new spot. And that's fine. That always happens. The team is going to be centered more around James Cook and Dalton Kincaid. And there's an opportunity for multiple of these wide receivers to be able to eat at any different time. And it can be Shakir, it can be Claypool, it can be Coleman. And that's going to make Josh Allen another level of dangerous. We talked about this on the show, and people in the chat were killing me when I said, don't be surprised if Patrick Mahomes takes his game to another level without Tyreek Hill. And Mike was like, Tony, don't say this. Why would you jinx it like this? And it's like, this is what great players, they can elevate anybody that's around them. And there's almost something that is better for them when they don't have a guy that they go, I have to get this guy the football, because that adds to like an incohesive way that things are being run. And I think Josh Allen has a real opportunity to take that next step and go, oh, I'm the reason players elevate. Because everybody looks at it and they go, Josh Allen wasn't that great before Stephon Diggs got here. Stephon Diggs was already a really good player. He elevated Josh Allen. You'll hear that conversation all the time. What is Josh Allen without Stephon Diggs? And it's like, I don't know. Did you watch the end of the season last year where like the team was doing really good and Stephon Diggs wasn't even a featured part of the game plan? Like somebody put up a really funny stat and they put MVS playoff numbers versus Stephon Diggs playoff numbers. And MVS is like destroys him in playoff numbers. Do we think that Stephon Diggs and MVS are comparable as players? No, we don't.
But whose career would you rather have? Whose career would you rather have?
MVS.
Don't even need to talk. Let's go on to the last topic, Tony. Just finish this off here. Lad McConkey obviously was your number 1. Tony, we didn't talk about him enough. Draft Lad McConkey. Thank us later. There's the topic on him.
Yeah, I agree. I like for Dynasty, that's why he's number 1 on my list. Like he probably will be my first round pick in our in our dynasty draft this year. I'm drafting towards the end of
Who has the number 1 pick in dynasty this year?
We just assume I have the number 1 pick. We just assume that Marvin Harrison Jr. is going at 1 overall, right? For everybody.
Whoever had the worst team gets the number 1 pick, right?
Yeah, but I trade for it every year, Joe. That's the thing.
Yeah.
You want to make a trade right now?
No matter who has the first overall pick, I just trade up for it. Whoever it is.
I'll take CD Lamb for him right now.
Last year, I traded up to 1 and then I traded back to 2, I think. I forget.
I should have number 1. I should have the number 1 pick.
I fucked up because I should have CMC and Bijan this year. That could have been something.
Wait, you passed on Bijan last year at 2? Who'd you draft?
In a way, yeah. I forced the person at second to trade up for him because everyone else was offering. But I was just like, I'm cool with Gibbs. Give me something to move up 1 spot. I forget exactly what it was. And I got Gibbs instead of Bijan. And it's not bad to have Gibbs. I'm excited to have Gibbs. Just Bijan's going to be a different level.
Yeah, I traded up for Anthony Richardson last year in that draft.
You just traded him, so I'm getting a lot of value in this deal. This is good.
Yeah, you are. You're getting a number 1 wide receiver and a quarterback with a lot of potential.
Sit behind Kyler, who's going to ball out, right, Tony?
I do believe Kyler is going to be really good in fantasy this year. Let's go to our last topic. We'll wrap this up with, in Dynasty, is there a player that you're trying to target or trade for? I will give my number 1 player that I think is a veteran who's in a good spot that is going to have at least a couple more good years of football. And I think his game translates really well to older football, and that's Christian Kirk. He's going into his, what did I write down here? His 27, 28-year-old season will be this year. So that means he's got a couple more years with Trevor Lawrence. I do think he'll be featured in that slot. He was on his way to a massive year last year. If you can get somebody who's just sort of like, Christian Kirk, hit or miss, I'm not really interested or whatever, offer a second-round pick for Christian Kirk. And I think over the next 2 years, you're going to get more value out of that than whoever you're going to take. And, potentially in the second round, I think you're going to get a player that's going to finish in the top, 18 in fantasy, potentially top 12 in fantasy at wide receiver.
I'm thinking similarly to you. So I'll just grab the baton because I was going to shout out Panthers' new slot wide receiver, Deontay Johnson, as my choice for a lot of the same reasons that you're saying, Tony. Is he's going to be the volume guy there in Carolina for them. I like Xavier to get outside. I just think he's going to be your big play. He's going to get his chances when he gets one-on-one against guys to just dominate him. When we're talking about all the third down targets, we're talking about all the middle of the field work. Deontay Johnson has proven he can do it in this league. That's why they got him in here with Bryce Young, to give Bryce Young that wide open guy that just finds space on almost every single play. And that's what Deontay is so good at. He's good at getting open. And I think it's a perfect fit for him there in Carolina. He's a guy that you could trade for and probably going to play there for 3 more years at least. And he's going to do good. He's going to give you solid production week in, week out, 5, 6, 7, 8 reception games consistently.
I like him in that offense too. Like if he's being used how we saw Chris Godwin used last year, could have some real success.
Joe.
Zay Flowers is somebody that I need to target this year.
It's funny. It's funny that you put that on there because I have last chance for me on Rashad Bateman. This is my last Rashad Bateman. Where it's like I think if he's in our dynasty league and somebody cuts him, he's one of those players where I would go, do I take an upside rookie? Like last year I picked up Rashee Rice. Ended up being great for me. Like one of those players where it's like, oh, all of a sudden you were able to find sort of a steal of an undrafted rookie once everything shook out. It's like, Rashad Bateman might be that veteran this year where it's like, first round pick, they just gave him a contract extension. Like, this shit's got to work at some point, right? Like, you've got to become that 1,000-yard receiver at some point. Like, there was just too much talent to like. And now this is the last time I'm going to sit up here and not root him on, but like, what do they call it? Caping? Whatever the young hip term is. This is the last time I'll be doing any of that.
It's probably the last time you ever bring him up. Period.
Well, I like Bateman. I've had Bateman on multiple teams, and it's just like, come on. And then he gets hurt, and something happens. The reason I say Zay Flowers, like I want Zay Flowers to do good this year, because if he doesn't, then I think I'm taking the same approach on you, but I'm taking it with every Ravens wide receiver from now on. Like, I'm not taking him no more. Like, he can't do it. Like we've had a lot of promise, and it's never going anywhere.
Flowers is going to be great. We already have it, and the Ravens offense is a ton of fun for fantasy football, man. Mark Andrews is coming back into this thing. Flowers comes out the slot. He's close to the line of scrimmage. You've got Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely on this side of the line, Lamar Jackson, and Derrick Henry all standing in the box. You have to defend all these motherfuckers. Good luck.
It's going to be fun. We got new thin Lamar Jackson too. Like,
thin Lamar Jackson. Super Bowl. I'm calling it now. Lions Ravens. I didn't call this last year at all. Lions Ravens. Calling it now.
That I would be so excited for that Super Bowl. Like, obviously, I want the Chargers to be in the Super Bowl, but as far as like just something different to watch, I would be all in for that, to watch that game.
Texans Lions. That one. That'll be fun.
Texans, yeah. Anything different from what we've had would be good.
As long as I just don't want the Chiefs and I don't want the 49ers. Like, I'm pretty much like, I also don't want the Raiders or Broncos.
Raiders Cowboys, that would be a nightmare. Raiders versus
You know what? I would take the Raiders in there as long as it was like, a team like the Lions showed up and just whooped them like 63 to,
I don't know if I can handle that again in my lifetime. I've seen the Raiders in the Super Bowl, and I've seen them get their ass kicked, and it was
That's one of my favorite Super Bowls of all time right there.
I did enjoy that Super Bowl too. I was in San Diego and enjoyed the party in the streets. Got drunk and had some fun.
Oh, you still talking? Let's cut this shit out.
You were getting drunk in 2002? You realize I was a 5-year-old, right? Just like, Raiders suck. Fuck the Raiders. Like, looking at the TV.
So because you were 5, Tony couldn't get drunk?
I was 20. Yeah. Yeah, I was having fun. We don't need to go down. That was a long time ago. It was over half my life ago. That kind of makes me depressed.
What's one question though on this topic before I move on? What's your guys' thoughts? Because I'm kind of back in, honestly. I've been sold on it the last couple of days and weeks on Calvin Ridley this year.
Falling
forward again.
I think here's the thing. Let me do a quick bit of research on this, because I have really turned the corner on this whole offense, right? Like the whole Titans situation. Like, I think they did a really great job. So Calvin Ridley on Fantasy Pros, it looks like he's going wide receiver 33. Now, I think obviously as we get closer, that's going to elevate. But in that range, you have Christian Kirk at wide receiver 29, Terry McLaurin, Tank Dell, George Pickens, Calvin Ridley, Chris Godwin, Rashee Rice, Deontay Johnson. We're talking about players that you're getting in the 7th, 8th round. All of these players can have wide receiver 2 potential, like really strong wide receiver 2 potential. So I'm in on Calvin Ridley if he stays in that 7th to 8th round range and he's the 3rd or 4th wide receiver that I draft. I'm not going back to the Calvin Ridley's being drafted as my wide receiver 2, but I draft him as wide receiver 4, and then he could be my wide receiver 2, because there's still a little question about how good Will Levis will be for me.
Yeah, I have the same questions, Tony, but the way the Titans manage this offseason, They're telling us they have full faith in the guy. I mean, we've seen teams have full faith in somebody and they completely fail before. But usually, if they know something that we don't, maybe they know something we don't, that maybe Mayo is the fucking secret to quarterback play in the NFL.
I think
he does have a cannon. He is a cannon.
We're doing what we would have hoped they would have done for Justin Fields, which is to give you a fair evaluation. We're going to bring in, because the Bears, we were excited because they brought in DJ Moore, but it's like they already had DeAndre Hopkins there, and then they bring in Calvin Ridley, and they bring in Tyler Boyd, and they bring in Tony Pollard, and they bring in, they draft J.C. Latham and bring in a center, bring in an offensive-minded head coach. Like, they're giving Will Levis a real shot to succeed, like a real chance that we're going to evaluate you. We're going to see, like how much you can handle, like how well you can lead a team full of established veterans, like guys that have rushed for a lot of yards in this league, guys that have been, top wide receivers in the NFL. Like, you have a really good team. Like, that backfield of Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears is really interesting. It's a really good combination, really good home run speed and ability. Like, he's in a situation to succeed. It's good stuff. And Chigakonkwo, I didn't give a shout out to one of my favorite young tight ends. Like, fantastic. Run left.
Talking about tight ends.
Run left. Yeah, but
tight ends are next week.
Tight ends will be next week, and then after, we should be getting pretty close to some mock draft Mondays. July, end of June, July. Start breaking out the contact list and seeing who wants to jump in and join us for some mock draft Mondays, where we just continue to blow hot air. The air only gets hotter in the summer. Same way on this show, just blowing smoke. It all.
Okay, last thing before we end this, Tony. Do you feel better, because you brought it up, mock drafts? Do you feel better when you do a lot of mock drafts than you do like just one or two mock drafts? Like, because the last couple of years we've been doing tons of mock drafts, and I feel more prepared going into the draft than any other draft.
So I feel a lot better about where I'm getting the best value, right? And where I think I can take reaches on certain players. It's like, I had a year last year where a lot of the wide receivers that I was like, oh man, I can't believe George Pickens is falling to me in the 8th round. And then it's like, but if Kenny Pickett can't function in that offense for whatever reason, then it doesn't matter that I got technically a steal on talent like that. Like, when you have your best games of Mason Rudolph, I've already taken you out of my dynasty lineup, and that now it's costing me victories late in the season where I could have potentially ended up with a bye in that and then maybe won a championship that way. It's like, you can think you're getting steals. You can think you're getting more information. It doesn't. That's the great thing about fantasy football. You either get lucky or you don't. And that's to win championships. Good fantasy managers always make the playoffs, always have good regular season records. They show up, they're attentive, they play the wire, they make trades. If you're good, you're always going to make it. Lucky people win fantasy championships. The people who get the healthiest rosters at the end of the year, the people that like made the one pickup or didn't release a guy 1 week before he broke out. So like, the championship is luck. The real heroes are the guys who take first place in the league every year. Let's get right here. That's the way I look at it.
Hey, I wish that's the way they ran it too. I wish they just gave it to the people who finish at the top every year, Tony, because I'm always like one of the highest scoring teams in every league I play in. And then in the semifinal or the final, some shit hits the fan and all 6 of my third place teams lose in the same week. It's fun. It's a blast. I've been crushing it the last couple of years with that strategy.
All right. Can we end this show, Joe?
Well, I was going to say my biggest thing, Joe, with the mock drafts is it kind of gives you like your paths that you're going to go on based off what draft position you get, based off players getting taken. Like, the mock drafts help me form maybe 3 strong strategies that I really like. And it's like, if I can get this player in round 2 or round 3, then I'm going down this direction. Or if I can get the 4th pick, I'm going this direction. But if I can get the 12th pick, I can go this direction. Like, I feel like that gives you an advantage, especially in the home leagues. It doesn't have a bunch of experts that do this every single day, and realizing where everyone's going and how you can kind of plan your picks. And it can help me make decisions in the third round with stuff in mind for the 7th, 8th, 9th round.
Yeah. What he said.
What he said. All right. Happy Friday, everybody. Thank you for spending an hour and some change with us. We hope that you are excited about fantasy football season. If you're watching this later, trying to catch up, and it's like August now, and you're like, well, what are these guys talking about? This is outdated. It's like, hey, just click here and subscribe, and you'll find out where we're talking about more up-to-date information. And we're overanalyzing preseason nonsense and training camp stuff and all the fun things that we get to sort of discover and unpack as the football conversations roll along. And if I haven't said it already, I'll say it again. Go onto the internet, on your social media, and put something positive out there in the internet world where, you're just scrolling through and just say, hey, great catch in OTAs. What wonderful way to go. Hall of Fame career on the horizon. Good for you. Don't do it sarcastic. That's not sarcastic or facetious. Be genuine about it.
If you're watching this in late August, turn us off and go and watch some politics so you can go and get ready for the presidential election. It's way more important than your fantasy league.
What the fuck?
Absolutely. I endorse. How do we cut that out? Just none of it means anything. Stop.
Joe, you got nothing else to sign off here?
Somebody end that shit now. How do we end this?